time the Planetary Peace Federation could have come into being, and people like my friend Dr. Glenn Martin are already working on that. They have a constitution, they've got a planetary peace constitution set up and a parliamentary assembly set up. They're meeting later next year in Pondicherry in South India, having a parliament. So, you know, all these are little pieces of the peace puzzle that come together, I think. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because it's very exciting. The other thing I've been up to philosophically is here's Schopenhauer struggling. This is a great new biography of Schopenhauer by Rudiger Safransky, German philosopher, and it's called Schopenhauer and the Wild Years of Philosophy. And Schopenhauer interests me. I think he was a very, very deep thinker. One might not agree with everything he says, but he stared into the face of despair and the lack of God and the lack of answers. And you know, he couldn't find solace in Goethe's eternal feminine will lead you on. He thought this was nonsense because the women he met were all crooks or prostitutes. He couldn't find anyone on his level. So that was he couldn't do that goddess move. And so anyway, it's interesting. I'm going to have to improve my German to read it because it's in German, but I'm going to work through it. And I think he also looked at Indian thought and Eastern philosophy to synthesize that with Western thought. And also I want to just share this, which is Philip Freeman's great book, The Philosopher and the Druids, A Journey Among the Ancient Celts. And this guy, it's the study of Posidonius, who was a Stoic philosopher at the time of Pompey, so 50 BC or a bit before, from Rhodes, the island of Rhodes, which I've been to in the Aegean. And he was a Stoic philosopher and a Platonist and an Aristotelian all at once, and a scientist, and he was an anthropologist. He was fascinated by the Celts, and he spent 2 years here in Gaul studying them on a field trip, taking notes, meeting their leaders, intellectuals, druids. He was fascinated by their theories of reincarnation and the role of women, which was quite high status in their society, the role of their bards and musicians and poets. The book has vanished, sadly, the work he did, all that research. However, I've got scouts out looking for it. We might find it in a cave somewhere here in La Creuse, possibly as in the old library, because Chateau Mayon near here was the kind of epicenter of the Druid roads of Gaul at the time. It's quite important. And so I'm hoping it'll turn up, and that it was well sealed in a jar, a wine jar, because in those days they were all written on scrolls, you see. Surely he would have given a copy to the Druid chiefs. But anyway, it's fascinating, Posidonius' work. And of course he's named after Poseidon, the god of the sea, who, if all else fails, he will save us. We've had Poseidon in the God's Game a couple of times. So yes, so oh yes, one last thing I want to say that is on my mind. Well, anyway, any questions or comments first?
Maybe comments
Yeah.
about the first part of your talk when you spoke about importance of history when you consider events like in Ukraine or Israel. And I think one point to mention also is to listen to people. Because usually by the talk, even if sometimes they are lying, you can pay attention to what they say. And I think in most cases we do not pay attention to what people say. Especially, for example, if we analyze the Putin's spokesman before starting the war in Ukraine, they in many times alerted that they will do that. And also in Israel, some people in Israel, they say, we will slaughter Palestinian people. So what happened?
There were warnings.
Yes. So for me, this is also the importance for us as a philosopher, as philosophers, to listen to that people, and for that we need press that report what they are saying. That's
So it comes back to the media.
Yes. Not. I don't want to see journalist opinion. I want to hear what responsible people on any side they are saying.
So what if we do crack the speed of light, and everyone has like their own TV station in their own home, and beam in from wherever they are, and you can tune into everyone's, because you have like everyone can listen into everyone and have global conversations faster than light. Not mediated through the big tech companies and Facebook and stuff. That way the trouble is, what if people say bad things? Sometimes you want to filter that stuff out, don't you? And that's where journalists come in.
Yeah, but if someone say bad thing, and many of them said bad thing, for example, as a French guy, I really think that my president is saying bad thing. So maybe another French guy won't agree, or you won't agree. That's a discussion.
I don't hear him saying much, but Macron,
still, I'm hearing what he's saying. And
You don't like it?
that's enough for me. I just want to hear what he's saying. Then I make my opinion.
Okay.
If I wonder, I will listen to somebody else. But at least I have his talk. For me, it's important to get his talk.
I think the direction of travel ought to be in that of collective intelligence. So that if we democratize information flow, that was the point of the internet age until it was sort of hijacked by the superpowers, the Elon Musks and type, to weaponize it, and also to misuse it with the warlords of the internet. Like Putin has this intelligence operation that he runs. We know that, which engineered Brexit and which is pumping out propaganda against the West all the time. But if we didn't have that, if we had, like, I would love every journalist to have to swear a truth oath. I'd like everybody that uses the internet and sends emails to have to tell the truth. But we're not there yet, are we? So you're right, we have to listen to each other, but also we can then give critical feedback. And that's the point of democracy, is to have the conversations.
Yeah, but that's the point where you told about history. Because when you have history of people, history of countries, you can say, oh, this guy, they are lying very often. Or this guy, they are lying very seldom. You can
gauge them.
Yes.
Yeah, it gives you more perspective, yeah. I do want to mention that I've remembered the one thing I wanted to say before we move on. There was a very important vote in the UN Security Council 3 or 4 days ago.
Yes.
The 10 non-permanent members had put together a package of a permanent, durable ceasefire in Gaza, and the release of the hostages, and sending in more aid. It was like a solution to the problem of Gaza. And everyone voted for it except for one power, which vetoed it, which is America. And I listened to the speeches afterwards. They're on the internet. The Algerian UN rep spoke very movingly, saying basically it's wrong that America should have this power of veto. The world community wants this war to finish. We've provided a blueprint. I mean, Israel's won. What else can they do? Just slaughter another 10, 20,000 people. I mean, they've killed the leading Hamas people. They've destroyed most of the tunnels. What else do they want? And also the Palestinian rep to the UN spoke very movingly, saying the same thing. The American guy, I think, I would say was dishonest because he was saying, well, we couldn't vote for this, we had to veto it because it didn't link the freeing of the hostages with, can you watch her tail doesn't get burned, because she normally puts it in the candle. Yeah, we don't want that. So, but, you know, these politicians, they're sort of paid to lie on behalf of their country, and I just find that very sad. Because we had a moment there where the Security Council could actually do something and deliver peace to Gaza, and it failed the people of Gaza and Israel. The Palestinian guy made plain, you know, we just want this to stop for the sake of all the Palestinians and the people of Israel as well. And we want the hostages to go home. Surely that's what's got to happen eventually. I mean, I'm sure that Mr. Dermer and Mr. Netanyahu probably think they're going to go on bombing for another year and kill another 40,000. Somehow the world community has to stop that. You know, and I can only use logic and persuasion and moral intelligence. I think I've been to Israel several times and Palestine. I love that region. I just want that killing to stop. And I think that's the moral choice for humanity. So I just wanted to mention that. It's sad. And I have spoken at the UN a couple of times. I've been into the headquarters in New York. And it's interesting, there's a meditation room which was set up under Dag Hammarskjöld, who was a Norwegian Secretary General of the UN, a very good man. And he believed in the power of spirituality, so he got a little meditation room there, which I've sat in and done prayers there. And also, by the way, I would say that Biden got married there in that room as an internationalist, progressive, you know, on the left, quote unquote. I think that's quite a nice thing he did with his wife, Jill, who's a teacher. I'm disappointed that that couple haven't managed to pull off peace in Gaza. He's still got a few weeks. So, Mr. Biden, if your agents pick up on this, please drop that veto, put it back again to the UN, and this time go for it. You know, stop shielding Israel from the inevitable, which is peace. I think, you know, enough with the trauma. We've got to get peace and move beyond that, because now it's becoming a Sophia-phobic reaction. Okay, so I think I'll finish there. Okay, another point. Yeah, go for it.
Yes, that's maybe a deep philosophical question, or not, I don't know. You spoke about the speed of light, and you would like to get people working together. And then you raised a point that disturbed me. You want to make a peace commission to manage the use of this discovery. And I'm afraid this peace commission is a kind of fear commission. Because what do you think? You laughed, but that...
No, I didn't. I wasn't saying a peace commission should manage the discovery. I'm saying that until we've got peace on the planet, we're not worthy to have that discovery.
Yes.
This is what I'm saying. And it would be catastrophic, it would be self-defeating, because if in the current state of geopolitics, let's say, you know, country X, China, Britain, whatever, invented faster than light speed, my fear is they would misuse it.
Who knows? It's yes, you said that my fear is that it will be misused. Everyone has this fear. But we are governed by fear in some way. That's the point I want to raise.
Yeah. Whereas if we just go for love, then we have to trust that nobody will misuse it.
Let's do it.
Okay, well, we can suspend judgment on that. I take a slightly more cautious position. And I do think that scientific knowledge should be managed because it can be dangerous. Like, I wouldn't give my daughters or, everybody the knowledge on how to make nuclear weapons, for instance. I wouldn't put that on the internet so that you can make it in your basement. Because there are crazy people on this planet who would then set off terrorist nuclear weapons in downtown Manhattan or Paris. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I do believe certain types of knowledge do need safeguarding from humanity in our current state of evolution. Because we're not fully moral yet, I believe, not fully awakened. The mass enlightenment hasn't yet happened, and that's what I'm saying faster than light speed, hypertechnology, after our moral intelligence has ascended a bit more. That's just a philosopher speaking, really. Okay, let's look at our periodic table and see what insights we can gain. And I have to move you, Bishu, because, sorry, you're sitting on it, of course. Yes.
You like religion table.
Sure, she loves it. But, yes. So, okay, let's go for one. What do we call
Voodoo. 104.
Okay.
What's yours?
You've got voodoo, have you?
Yes.
Okay. Which is 104. Right. Okay. Excellent. And I've got philosophy, personalism and spiritualism. 145. So I think we'll do the voodoo one first. Probably historically that's closer to our primal ancestry. 104. Associated with Haiti in particular, but not exclusively. And taken there by often African slaves who took their native religion.
Or can
Aboard.
I? What do you think if I change for cosmism and ufology because of it? Maybe it could be related with the speed of light. What do you think? Choose what you prefer.
I'm easy either way. Let's do both. I'll just very quickly do voodoo because it's an interesting one, and it comes from Africa. The priests and priestesses are called Mambo or Hungan, or Mama, the Queen Mothers. It's very pagan, but in the Americas, because they were slaves working in largely Christian contexts, like in Louisiana, they had a Christian veneer put over it. So, it was disguised as a sort of pagan Christianity, and Marie Laveau was one of their famous practitioners. There's a belief that there are these deities called Loa, L-O-A. So we humans are subject to the wishes of the gods, ultimately. And there's a supreme god, Bondier. Some forms of voodoo have an androgynous supreme god, Mawu. There's a supreme goddess as well, Nana Buluka. The moon is female, Mawu, and the sun is called Lisa, is male. So there's a whole pantheon of these spirits, and if you go into a voodoo home or like a little chapel, there'll be all these dolls all dressed up with coloured little clothes, and there are different rituals that you do. Eshu is a divine messenger deity with a large staff, and he's a mediator and peacemaker. I like that one in particular, Eshu. I wonder if it's connected with Yeshu, if it's Jesus sneaking into the voodoo pantheon, probably. There's also Papa Legba, Papa Zalka. So it's very, I mean, the thing about religion is how creative it is, and it's like an imagination world. I'm watching a documentary about Walt Disney at the moment in my spare time, chill out time at night. And he had this fierce imagination, creating all these things that whole generations of kids have loved. And voodoo is a sort of imaginal world. And the game is you play as if they're real, and then they become real. Discuss, what is reality. But they work. That's the mystery of the gods. They work. All things stem from the divine level. These deities watch over mankind. Everything is divine and interconnected. And this is why charms and rituals and spells work. Because if I say a prayer to one of these deities and invoke it and then ask for a certain effect, like we could invoke Eshu and say, please put in the mind of the great physicists of the world how to crack the speed of light, this coming year, 2025. And then you can imagine him going around the world, knocking on all the physics departments and invisibly putting ideas into the minds of these guys. So that's, I think, how this stuff works. Magic, if you want. And mankind, our duty is as mediators between all the worlds. We're to serve the deities, but also the plants and the animals and each other. So, it's quite interesting, and there's people in New York practicing this, in London, who are proud of their heritage as African people. It's their divine right to practice their heritage. It's thought there have been about 25 million practitioners in the whole of history, but now probably only about 500,000. So it's part of the rich cultural heritage that we're all from. And Africa is a continent of wonders, the more I discover about it. Okay, any questions about that?
Thank
have you
very
been
much.
to Haiti? Did you ever get to
No.
Caribbean and stuff? No.
I went on the Colombia North Coast, but I didn't see some religious practice. It was a kind of evangelist or not voodoo.
I'm very sad for Haiti. It's had very bad governance. It's had civil war, gangsters. I wonder if that whole gangster thing comes out of the suppression of their culture and their spirituality, and so they had to do voodoo in the woods, and it was all illegal, and they were whipped if they were found. So it became a sort of mentality that we're criminals, so we might as well behave like them. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If the 10 top voodoo priests and priestesses on the planet could go to Haiti, because they don't all live there, some live in the USA, and mediate between the gangs and invoke these gods to heal these conflicts, I believe it would work, and the gangsters would probably come in out of the cold and stop killing each other. I'm just suggesting to Macron a peace plan. If because France has got some karmic duty here. It was a French colony, and it was French that shipped a lot of these slaves out there, and a lot of them still speak French. So I think France could help turn to the voodoo elders and say, we need help to get peace here. Because I think that's why I'm interested in these religions. They could be peace-making tools. Right, voila. That's that one. Now we'll turn to the next one. Personalism and spiritualism. This is 145. And again, it's a French take on spiritualism. Because the French and the English have always been competing for who's the first to think of stuff. I mean, who really discovered oxygen and who really discovered spiritualism? The English all say it was them, and the Americans say, no, it was us. But actually the French know, well, no, hang on, it was us. And there's a very interesting history in France of thinkers who've explored on different levels. So they've explored the spiritual world philosophically, like people like Victor Cousin, Henry Bergson, and other thinkers. One who lived at the time of the French Revolution, Maine de Biron, who was a Freemason, he was an idealist. These are idealists. So they're saying, you know, beyond matter, they weren't materialists stuck in matter. They were saying there's something spiritual behind existence, a divine intelligence, and we can contact it through sharpening our intellect, through philosophical depth, if you want. And another one was Allan Kardec. So you've got your high-level philosophical idealists doing this spiritualism, and then you've got spiritualists who were contacting the spirits of the departed in seances. And this chap, Allan Kardec, was a French scientist from Paris, and he initially started as a skeptic. He was a mathematician and a scientist. He didn't believe in anything after death. But he sought evidence in he did scientific research on these spiritualist mediums, and they came up with stuff that it was not possible to explain naturalistically. So he became a convert to spiritualism, and a very famous one. And then he channeled this book, and one of the spirits said he was an old druid called Kardec. That was his druid name. So as a druid, you know, it's quite interesting. It was quite a thing in Paris in the 19th century to be interested in these things. Victor Hugo was interested in spiritualism. He used to do seances, and so did the Emperor Louis Napoleon III and his wife, a Spanish woman. They had interviews with spiritualists who would tell them, you know, secrets. And that's not surprising, because we know that Abraham Lincoln was doing the same in the 1860s, and Queen Victoria was doing that in Britain. And Gladstone, the Prime Minister, was doing it. So obviously if you're, I mean, for all we know, Biden and Netanyahu and Trump are all consulting spiritualists as we speak. I think Ronald Reagan might have done a bit. Certainly he dabbled in astrology, his wife did.
Mitterrand as well.
Probably Mitterrand.
Yes.
I mean, I think if you want to know the secrets and you're trying to understand, then why not consult a medium or something? You know, it's like cosmic spying. You know, what's Putin going to do next? Tell me, oh spirit. How can we get peace in Ukraine? Maybe Zelensky's there, you know, I don't know. I mean, as a philosopher, I would say, yes, that's all fine, but who informs the spirits themselves? Some spirits can maybe be deceptive. I think it's very important you know, cleanse and protect yourself. Don't let any wandering spirit into your orbit, and check that you've got quality control, because, you know, sometimes these spirits can be not of the highest quality. I don't know quite where these spirits get educated. Just because somebody is dead, it doesn't mean they become enlightened. They might be wandering around and still causing trouble, just not having, you know, physical means to do it so much. And I've met people that work with spirits in that way, and they have to send them on poltergeist type of things. So there are slightly mischievous spirits as well. And I think my view is that one should work only with the most intelligent of the spirits, and those are more like what we would call angels, the beneficent, angelic wisdom beings that want the best for humanity. But these are all interesting questions. And then the other thing this is the field of philosophy called personalism, which grew out of Christianity in early 20th century France, associated with Mounier and Gilson and Jacques Maritain. And these were largely Roman Catholic thinkers, but Christians, who believed that Christ was important. We shouldn't lose sight of Christ's mission. in amongst all the incredible fecundity of all the knowledge, all the science and everything. Because what Christ taught was that it's the individual, the person that matters. What he stood against was the eradication of the person by a system of be it, slavery or war, because in the Roman Empire it was a military machine and they were ruthless in killing the little people. And that's what I think upsets so much what we're seeing now, the killing of people in Gaza or Ukraine. It's a military machine that has no soul. It's not caring about them as persons. So I think personalism was a French protest by top intellectuals against the dehumanization that the political solutions of both fascism and communism seem to offer. It tempted the European mind to go with the mob mentality. Communism was a perfected mob system, and the mob was then controlled by the hierarchy of the party, and the party was then taken over by mobsters, gangsters. Stalin, Lenin actually were gangsters. Lenin had a veneer of intellectualism, but he was basically a mobster, and the Bolsheviks got their money for their revolution from gangster hold-ups, largely in the Caucasus, killing people, and Stalin was the leader of a lot of that stuff. And so, the mob of the communists then ran havoc in Russia and China, because I've said before, Mao was a mobster, gangster. And the personalists saw this. They said the trouble with these guys is they don't care about actual people as people. For a start, they don't believe they have souls, so they're just like, walking meat, essentially. Fodder for, pig food. And so you can kill millions of them, it doesn't matter. A ruthless approach. And obviously Pol Pot in Cambodia recently enacted this kind of philosophy. So this was the personalist movement in French intellectual life said, no, this is wrong. Actually, people do have souls. And they're all unique and precious, and there's a divine spark in us all, and therefore that's where our human rights come from, and our human duties, and that's where our capacity for love comes from. And that's what Christ was trying to awaken in us as an illuminated rabbi or teacher, spiritual teacher, as a divine emissary, if you want, like the Eshun. He was trying to tell us, wake up, you've got a soul, look after it, treasure it, that's the most important thing. And so I admire these French thinkers and the personalist movement. It's not often studied in English-speaking communities, but there's a few people. And they overlap with the spiritualism traditions of French variety, because a lot of them were interested in both. Any questions before we go on and do finally the UFO one? So the UFO one, you wanted to have a double whammy, two shots here. Well, it is related to the fast and speed of light thing, because what I'm interested in is, obviously one can ask a question, if there is fast and light travel possible, maybe they're already here, maybe somebody out there has got here. And of course there is quite a lot of evidence that possibly is the case. And that's quite interesting. There was a very good series on Netflix called something about alien investigations or something. And it's up to date by a chap who's one of the world's top researchers into this. There's